You're tuned into the Writing Community Chat Show, the live streaming YouTube podcast that brings you the stories of authors, screenwriters, and more. Indie or established, this show's for the community, and we invite you to be a part of it. Head to thewritingcommunitychatshow.com for more info. The WCCS. Together as one, we get it done.
Hello and welcome to the Writing Community Chat Show. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Writing Community Chat Show. It's been a week since our last interview. I feel like it's been longer for some bizarre reason. It's kind of been a long week for us, potentially you as well. Let us know how your week's been. Has it been good? Has it been productive? More importantly, in the terms of writing and other things, but also I hope it's been good and manageable. Chris, how has your week been?
Yeah, it's been good. National Poetry Day in the UK yesterday, so I read some poetry to sort of celebrate.
Oh, yeah,
that was fun. Everyone I worked with, I said to them, "What's your favourite poems?" I think if you've never done that at work before, National Poetry Day is a good day to do it.
I hope you didn't show them the basically the clip where you made me cry in tears of laughter.
Yeah, do you know what? Nobody actually asked me in return what my favorite poem was, but I think it was interesting because it revealed a little bit about each person and their personality, what their favorite poem was. So, yeah, fun times.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a bit of a mad week. There's lots of show things. We've got opportunities coming in. Spoke about how we've been invited to the London Book Fair, which is amazing. We had a very short notice invite to the Amazon Kindle Storyteller Awards in London in like 2 weeks, which unfortunately for us is it's too short notice. But what incredible experience that would have been for us. But hopefully, if that happens again next year, if they sponsor us to do the whole thing again, we might plan for that ahead of time. But yeah, so things are happening in the background. But what's also happening is the lack of writing for me. Chris, I hope you are as productive or even more productive. An interesting day I had yesterday. I decided to do a bit of extra work to get some cash in. I did some Amazon delivery driving. And my God, was it a nightmare. So that was a long day yesterday. No time for creating stuff, which I love to do. So back from next week and this weekend on, even we got a storm here. It's pretty rubbish. Will be a nice, wet, windy weekend to sit in the house and get on the computer, do some show production and get some writing done, because importantly, that's what we need to be doing. Right, Chris?
Yeah. Do you know what else we need to be doing? Again, this is something that I've been talking to everyone who's been in my proximity recently. I bought a velvetizer.
Explain.
So a velvetizer is a machine that makes very, very smooth hot chocolate. It's made for hot chocolate. So because it's getting colder and all these, the season of staying in, as you said, cozy blanket, I thought I'd get myself a velvetizer, and they really are very, very nice. So I've got a hotel chocolate velvetizer, and yeah, it's been fun.
Nice.
So I recommend them to people. It's not a paid advert, but yeah, get some hot chocolate in your life. It definitely improves.
Yeah. Do you get it in your beard now? It's a massive beard.
Yeah, if I cream it up, it looks bad. so I've got to be careful. The cream and marshmallow ratio, but yeah, fun times. Velvetizer.
Wow, I had no idea. Yeah, I was going to say something and it's gone out my mind, annoyingly. That was a good point. Anyway, it's not a good point because it clearly hasn't stuck there. But yeah, so as people know, we've had 360 plus interviews now on this show. All amazing interviews, great guests. And what?
Ross just put Rasputin loves his velvetizer.
Yes. Sorry, you distracted me. And we've been ranked as one of the top writing podcasts in the UK for the past 2 years, which is incredible. And what happens, which we find amazing, is some guests stick with us from the start and support us. And tonight's is one of those. A brilliant author and a great support of the show from the early days. And it's been 3 years since he last joined us. Can you believe that?
Yeah, 3 years since the last venture into Simone LaFray.
Yeah.
I'm nervous now. But yeah, it's good to have him back on and chat to him. Yeah, excited.
Yeah, and obviously his journey's taken off through a lot of hard work and dedication, and we're looking forward to a massive update. So we hope you are too. So are you ready for tonight's show, Chris?
Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. So in the time that we last spoke, he's been nothing short of explosive in the publishing world. His novel Simone LaFray, and which you can always see above Chris's head, not just that book, but every guest we have. And The Bishop of Mumbai is a runaway success. It's been named a distinguished favorite winner for middle grade at the Big NYC Book Awards and secured a phenomenal starred review from the Independent Book Review. But that's not all. We're talking about more than just awards and great reviews. The entire Simone LaFray series is being shopped for a major production deal. It's an incredible story of hard work and passion and well-deserved success, and we can't wait to hear every detail of what the last 3 years have been like. So please, everyone in the chat, give me a nice big hand in giving a massive warm welcome back to the show, the brilliant award-winning SPO Farrell. Hello, Steve.
Well, hello, guys.
How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing fantastic. I want to hear about this velvetizer. I've never heard of such a thing. We have certainly hot chocolate, but I'm all ears as to the velvetizer.
Yeah, so I've tried to describe this to a few people now, and apparently I'm not selling it very well, so I probably won't. But it's essentially a little bit like a kettle in terms of you put liquid in it and it will make it hot, but then it has a little fan at the bottom that spins round and makes the liquid really, really smooth. So if you've got the way you do it, you get your milk, you can pick your favorite chocolate bar, chop it all up, put it in with the milk, and it will incorporate the chocolate into the milk and make it really smooth and delicious. And you can even have coffee in it. You can make milkshakes. It's definitely worth the investment. If you're into your coffee and your hot chocolate, you will definitely appreciate the difference.
I feel like you need some product placement here. You should get an advertiser for this.
Yeah.
It's right for that. You're selling it better with the swirling in. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Ooh. Anya said try Mexican hot chocolate with cinnamon and chili. It's delicious.
Oh, sounds good.
Yeah, you'll have to have
And
go with that.
congratulations on the podcast. You guys, along this whole journey, you guys have had enormous success on this. Congratulations.
We just can't believe we're still doing it. And that sounds bad, but it's something just started off, as a thing to do and to bring the community together. And it's nearly 6 years on. It's crazy where time has gone.
It is hard to believe how the time has gone. My publisher asked me to write a blog, sort of this reflective piece when the third book was coming out. And I was looking back at this and I was like, well, that was almost 10 years ago when I started writing. And wow, a lot has changed. And thinking of, the writing journey and personal journey and all this stuff, it is a lot to look back on. So anyway, congratulations on all the success and the purchase of your velvetizer.
Rob is in the chat, and I'm going to point him out because he called you a nemesis at the start. Yeah, he said that.
Yes, and I picked up a nemesis. Everyone needs a nemesis, right? So I can check that box.
And he's also said, so it stirs it, which is massively undersold, that thing of what I just said. No, it doesn't. It just makes it absolutely delicious and frothy and I
can't believe we're still talking about a velvetizer. What we need to talk about, guys, anyway, if you are here for the first time, welcome. And if you haven't seen Steve's journey into writing and all that good stuff, it's kind of what we do in our first shows with the guests. And 3 years ago, we did that. So if I get it right, you can see that right up there. If you want to watch it at the end, click back and see his journey into writing. But obviously, 3 years, a lot has been happening. And you talked about 10 years ago, starting that kind of blog and your writing process. But 3 years, there's a lot happened. And in the Simone LaFray series that's now moving on, including now looking at book 5, right?
That's right. A lot has changed. And when this all started, it was written as a early chapter book. It was something that was written for my niece. And then it sort of went on and proliferated. And then at some point, it was plotted into this massive story. And then I broke that down into what would be individual books and what looks like it was going to be a 6 or 7 book series. And I knew how sort of all the books sort of started and ended, and what all the plot points were, and all that kind of good stuff, and just started writing it. I have found I'm more of a plotter than a pantser at this point. I know how each of the books start and end. Now I plot them out to the chapter. I'm much more meticulous at that because I feel that I have to be more efficient at it. The writing process for me is one I don't write full time. I run a small business and do all this, so I have to be pretty efficient in the way that I go about it. But now the one thing I have found is that original plotting is holding pretty true to form. We've had to pivot a few times, but it's still going to end the way I thought it was going to end. We've probably shrunk it by a book. It looks like it's going to land at 6 books now. We're 3 books published. The 4th book is pretty much plotted at this point. We're putting some final polish on the plotting of it right now. I plan to start writing it probably in the next 45 days or so, but I'm one of those writers, similar to a reader, that if I read the first sentence of a chapter, I have to finish it. So if I start writing, if I write that first sentence, I got to keep going. And now knowing how much time and energy it takes to write a book, you gotta do your calisthenics, and it's like building up to a marathon. You got to work up to it before you get out and write it. So hopefully that'll be a project over the summer, over the winter. And I think now, having a few under my belt and then having written some other stuff in the interim, I feel I can do it a little bit more efficiently, write it, hopefully get it into my editor late spring, and move on with that. But I think with this next one, the other thing I'm going to try to do is write the 4th one and the 5th one sort of simultaneously, or at least write one into the next, to sort of get going towards finishing it out in the 6th book. So, it's a lot to handle. Series, I have found, are, there's just a lot to juggle. There's a lot to tie up. And but I love the characters. The response from the reading community has been outstanding. That's one of the things that I found with this, now that I've having a few books out there, talking to people at the events, they're interested in the characters. They're excited to see what happens to them. They care about them. They want to know what happens. And, hopefully I can do good by that and, write this thing to a good conclusion.
I'm always really interested with a series that goes on over an extended time, because as a writer, your mindset changes, your personality changes. So how difficult is it, or is it easy to stick to those characters in terms of keeping them on the same sort of page? Does that make sense?
It is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
It is incredibly difficult, because one of the things that I never expected is they grow. They get older. A 12-year-old is different from a 13-year-old, is different from a 14-year-old. The dynamics of their relationships change. And one of the things that we decided to do, which was always going to happen, but it just became more apparent, was the book series was going to be, it started in middle grade. It's a middle grade series right now, but it's going to transition into young adult.
Yeah.
That earlier viewership of young adult, which is that 13 to 16 range. So Mumbai, the one you have there up on the screen, is back here as well. It brushes into some of those things, but it's moving into young adult, which is a whole different set of themes, and it is difficult. You're almost seeing, like your child aging. Their personalities change, how they react to things change. You want to keep the central conflicts consistent and how they react to those changes, which creates some interesting dynamics. But Chris, it's hard. It is hard to write a series. When I finish this one out, I don't know that I'll write another one. I have a duology that I'm working on now, but boy, a series is difficult.
What advice then would you have for someone who's got that crazy concept in their mind that I want to write this series? As someone who's going through that process and has been doing it, what could you tell them that might help that journey a little bit easier?
Yeah, I would say you better have the whole thing plotted out really well, because I would say the one thing that has benefited from from the whole process is I do go back to that original plotting of the story. So I go back to that, and that's the roadmap. If I didn't have that roadmap, I would be in some serious trouble. And it's not all spelled out. I mean, there is some discovery writing between the points. I mean, it's not all completely laid out, but I know where all the plot points hit. It's driving that car between the points. That's the hard part, right? So, or that's actually one of the more exciting parts, because that's where you really find some cool stuff in there. But if you didn't have that roadmap, it would be very, very difficult to pull that off. But I would say you really have to like the characters, you really have to like the themes, and you really have to believe in it, because it is a marathon to try to pull one of these things off.
I think you should keep it going, just all the way into adulthood. Get it into a Mission Impossible style at the end novel. Brilliant.
You know, I may have mentioned that before, but when I was plotting the second book, for a while, there was an idea to make it not a serial, but to put another book in there that was sort of a one-off. And I worked on it for about 6 months, and it was awful. And I ended up just deleting it. I pretty much scrapping the whole thing. I kept a couple of characters, but it was terrible. No, it was, stick to the plan. The plan was good, stick to it and work it through. But it takes a lot of work. I know there's probably a few people there. I can't really see everybody in the chat, but there's a few there. I'm sure that have written some series, and it is difficult. You have to have that rudder, that North Star that you're riding towards, and if you don't have it, it is really, really hard. And you really have to like these characters too. There has to be something that you gravitate to these characters. I know a lot of you know, but a lot of family members, and there's a lot of me, and there's a lot of my family, and some personal things in these characters. So I care about these characters. So you want to see them through, and you want to bring them to life and make them as full as possible. But I would say think long and hard. If you're going to do it, think really long and hard before doing it, because it is very time consuming.
Yeah, obviously the format of the show is a little bit different. So Anya's got a question, which is it hard to get into the head of those characters, those ages?
Yes. Yeah, I've heard recently someone said that there's everyone has a writer's age. Like when they start thinking of writing, they either get in the mindset of a 16-year-old or a 12-year-old or a 20-year-old or something like that, that there's like a go-to. And it typically is the first book that impacted them in a certain way that, sparked a love of writing or started reading. And then you have to pivot to certain ones. For me, it's somewhere in that 13-year-old. I remember there were a couple of books of that age group for me that resonated, that got me more interested in reading. So yes, it is difficult. It is very difficult. Our boys are older than that now. So I don't have a lot of conversations with 12, 13-year-olds, except if I do, book signings or go to schools or something like that. So yeah, it is difficult. It's something I definitely have to work at for sure. It is hard. I definitely have an easier time with the adult characters. That is for sure.
So do you know what that kind of spark was for you then, to relate yourself to those aged characters? You mentioned how your go-to would be this. Do you know why your go-to is the characters that you created at that age?
Yeah, I just remember being in middle school and reading a few books and being more interested in story structure. Prior to that, it was more comic books and some other things that I would read. I was sort of a reluctant reader at that point. But I remember being interested in, Lord of the Flies and some other things of that era that were more, they were plot in it as well, but there was more emotion in it, or the storytelling was a little bit deeper, so they were a little bit more interesting. They weren't all, the protagonist didn't always spike the ball at the end. They were a little messy, things like that. So for me, that's somewhere in there is usually where I start, I guess. So
I think growing up, we had a kind of our ages roughly. You had things like the Chronicles of Narnia and the Secret Seven, things like this. They were all young-ish people that led those stories, and that could sort of be an influence for a lot of people.
How about you, Chris?
Yeah.
And by the way, your facial hair is almost intimidating. It's so thick and burly.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you should say that about the author age, because I didn't read an awful lot as a kid. But the first book that sort of hit me was a Neil Gaiman book. It's The American Gods. I read.
Yeah.
And I suppose I was thinking about that after you said it, and I was like, yeah, a lot of the time my characters start about the same age as his character actually in that novel. So it's interesting that you say that, because it's something that I've never considered before. But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, yeah, it's quite profound. Yeah, I'm going to bring Ross back into it, and he says, yeah, this is interesting because all my characters are dead, which is worrying.
Oh. Yeah, that is an interesting. But yeah, it's writing a series. It is really tough. But this one's we're at the midpoint now in the series, which is an exciting part. So yeah, it's an exciting time to be writing the series for sure.
So with your book being recognized as a distinguished favorite winner and received a starred review, after writing for years and years and planning it out and everything like that, how did those sort of recognitions, how did that affect you, and did it change your writing process at all?
I don't think so. I mean, it's nice. It's nice to be recognized. Those things are pretty cool. I would say that part of the process of writing, when you're doing these things, you think you're getting better at it. You always want to feel like you're getting, either more clever at the plotting or the way the structure is being developed and things like that. That tends to happen. But then typically in every book that I've written, at some point you have sort of this, I'm the worst writer, and it's not working out for some reason. You think it's all going great, and it sort of implodes. And then you go back to sort of the basics of it, sort of relearn it a little bit. And, I feel that, it has to be pretty good at the end. So my first drafts, I usually self-edit at least a couple of times. So by the time it goes to, like, even anybody else reads it, it's usually the third draft, maybe the fourth draft. So I like to have them pretty well oiled by the time I let them out. But I would say, in terms of like the working on the crafting of the books, yeah, I do try to work at that a good bit. I don't read a lot about writing craft. There's a few things that I'll read about it. I try not to, read too much about it, because then I think you try to focus on one specific thing rather than sort of following your instincts on how something should feel, or how the plotting should be, or stuff like that. But I feel they should be pretty good, and if I'm satisfied with them, if I'm writing for myself and I feel pretty good about them, and then you bring in the editing team and that feels like you're on the same path. But with some of them, I'm always surprised. Usually when I hand these in, I feel like they're almost shelf ready, and they are far from shelf ready.
I was going to say, do you ever get the you think this is it, this is ready, it's absolutely perfect, and then they turn around and say, Steve, there's a lot of work to do here?
Yes, and I have been told that I have an unhealthy relationship with dialogue tags. That I have. I don't. One of the through lines is timeline. When I originally and I actually plot these things, I'll put it on a calendar to show how the book should be going. And for some reason, my editor finds gaps or these things in the timeline that need to be corrected, or there's a lot of action within a brief period of time, and there's sort of these lulls, or there's a sag in the middle or something like that, because you spend so much time on these things and you read them over and over, and it all sounds right. You read it out loud, all these things. So at some point you're sort of exhausted with it, and you want to hand it off to better minds, far more educated editors, and they do a great job once you get to it. But those first 2 rounds of developmental are humbling. Do you know what a colon is, or what a semicolon is, or those types of things with grammar, or all of that type of stuff. But it's a humbling experience.
Yeah.
But and that just inspires me to want to do better. You want to do better drafting. You want to have better ideas, better twists, better endings, higher stakes, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, because it's their job to get you better, right? So they don't have to do as much work.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's one way to look at it.
Talking about inspiration, why Mumbai for this book? Why did you decide to go there with Simone?
Right. So with the third book, so the progression of the book, one of the themes of the book, in the first one, she starts to question her world is fairly small, and she starts to question things like who her parents are, and the things that a lot of kids at that age start to look at. Is my dad the person that I thought he was? Those types of things. In the second book, her world starts to expand a little bit. She's off to London, and she starts to question some other things, some things in her relationship, some things that are pretty much in her orbit. So in the third book, we have to expand it a lot. So she has to almost, globetrot or get way outside in her perception of the world and what is going on. And when we were plotting it out, she was either going to go to one of two places. She was going to go to Japan, or she was going to go to Mumbai. And one of the through lines of the book, she's been a chess player from the front. And by the way, I had to learn to play chess to write a lot of this, which is a whole completely different story. But and chess is very prevalent in India, so it seemed a natural to fall there. And then when I was researching it online, fantastic place culturally, visually, what an outstanding place for the backdrop of a book. I mean, just the setting, everything about it was just fantastic, and it just fell into place, beautifully once we started to plot that in, and then the writing of it came really, really easy, and it was the perfect fit for that. So happy to put it there, and so now her world is quite large. She's going to be globetrotting from here on out.
Apart from, say, chess moves, then, what was one thing that really surprised you about India that you might have learned through your kind of research for the book?
So a couple things. One, the weather.
Okay.
The weather was one. How populated it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was researching culturally, the confluence of cultures there, how many people live there, how, across the street you can have, there's slums there, and then you can have, where they're building new high rises can be right across the street. I mean, the diversity is quite outstanding from what I was able to find from all of this stuff. It was really outstanding. And then I think I watched a Bollywood movie or two, and try to grab some of that as well. So
they're amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean they have their own thing going. So it was perfect spot. And the other thing was, what I found, Chris, was there aren't a lot of books set in India, and there are very few children's books. There's not a lot of kidlit that seems to be in India. I don't know why, but there just aren't many. So it seemed like a good opportunity.
Yeah. So was that almost then a conscious decision based on the fact you mentioned how amazing all the aesthetics were as well, but also the fact the market maybe was a little untapped in that area?
Oh yeah. I think there was some of that. It seemed like it just all came together. It just seemed to all come together at that point. So maybe Japan in the future, I don't know. We know where she's coming in the fourth book, but it came together so well. And she's in south of France for a little bit in the third book as well, and then a short stop in Italy. But it was the perfect spot, so it all came together just right.
So at what point are you going to start using your books or research purposes to go on these amazing trips?
I would love to. That would be the dream. I've listened to a few podcasts where I can't remember the guy's name, but who goes around the world to scout his spots out for his Kindle books, and I thought, boy, that would be amazing. But I do not have the time nor the budget to go to all of these places, but it would be nice. It would be nice. But luckily there's Google Maps, and I have gotten to know some friends in these places, and they give me a lot of good intel. So I would
love for you to, obviously you mentioned how Simone goes to France and then Italy. I would have loved just a little snippet of a grumpy old man called Ross in France, and then Italy, Mario making his bolognese, just a little snapshot as she's like running through something. That would just be brilliant.
Well, perhaps there's 3 books to go, so you never know where somebody might make an appearance.
Yeah. Well, one thing I want to talk about then is
Yeah.
obviously getting readers in a series to go back to book one when you're advertising, say, the new books and things like that. Have you ever had a sort of mission or a way that you do focus on that when you're trying to attract new readers whilst advertising a book that's later on in the series?
Yes. So when we were in the pre-release phase of all this, when you talk to your publisher or you talk to marketing people, the great thing about a series is the third book sells the first book, right? So whenever a new book releases, what you're really trying to do, there's the buzz of the new book, right? But what you're really trying to do is sell the first book as well. So there's a lot of attention is given to the first book because my books build. You could read them, but really there's information in the first book and the second book to build on the third book. So
yeah,
but you do need those bits of information to fully digest the third one. But the push is to get the third book out there. So when the first book out there. So when the third book was released, we saw enormous or a big spike in sales of the first book.
Mm-hmm.
To get that out there, and then you see the second book and then the third book also trail up as well, which is good because you really want to get that first one out there. No question about it. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember when I was going through this whole process, I forget who told me, but they said no one sells your first book like your third book.
That's a great comment.
Yes, and that has held. So
yeah,
I mean, and you don't have a series with one book, and that was one of the tricky things when the first book came out. It was well received and it was well reviewed and it did well, but it's not a series if it's just one book. You can say it's a series, but
because we all kind of realized, most authors realize that once you release the book and you've done all that hard work and you think that is a lot of hard work done, there is a whole lot more hard work coming in the form of marketing. So what have you possibly learned then over the series that could help someone in the realm of marketing?
In the marketing standpoint, wow. Ooh, where do you start on that one? So the marketing, I would say consistency, and you have to be able to put yourself out there. I mean, and there's only so much that you can control. We do a pretty good job in a geographic area. So like we have some relationships with bookstores that have been very good to us. We do book signing events. There's some great opportunities there to really build your viewership. In Kidlit, this opens the opportunity to go into schools, do those sort of things to build your readership up as well.
Yeah,
those are really good. When you're online, of course, there's all the social media stuff that you can do. Middle grade is a weird one, and when you talk to a lot of people in PR and marketing, you're really marketing the book to adults who buy the book for the child to read. There are adults that read middle grade, but for the most part, you're buying the book to give to somebody, which is a little bit different dynamic than, say, young adult or adult fiction, which you're picking up. So it's very tricky, and there's no shortage of people that are willing to sell you stuff online, all those things. I would say if you're in the middle grade space, be very wary of all of those things. Just try to control what you can control. Look at your branding. It's tricky. Start small and hustle. Get good at the small stuff. Build your small game up and just continue to grind on it and do the best you can to scale it out.
It's interesting you say that because I actually wrote parents and children on a little post-it then, and I was going to say, what would your sales pitch be to parents, and then how would that differ if you were selling this series to a child?
Right. So with parents, when you're at a book signing or something like that, usually you engage in a little bit of conversation. They're asking a couple of questions, and I would find for the most part, parents, they want to know a little bit about the story, and they want to know, is it are there cuss words in it? Is it all that kind of stuff. So you sort of alleviate them of those concerns, that there's nothing of that. And then it's adventure story, coming of age, spy, Paris. Usually those types of buzzwords, they have some interest in that as well. So those things, when you talk about the cover, things like that. With the kids, I try to use comps. Do you like Harry the Spy? Do you like Western-Game? Do you like Western-Game? Might not be one. That was one I was reading not long ago, but that was, I think, from the 70s. Harry Potter, stuff like that. Do you like these types of books? But I tell you, it's harder because now, and when you talk to people about middle grade in particular, with there's the outlook for middle grade, or at least the last couple of years, has been really rocky for middle grade because sales have gone down every year over year. They said that just the readership is shrinking, that the books are too long. The kids don't want to read 60,000 words anymore. They want 40,000, 35,000 word books. They don't want these necessarily high concept books anymore because they're competing with TikTok, and they're competing with all these other things that are much more easily digestible. They want these tighter packaged, more direct offerings, which is tricky. And they want spooky books are very popular right now. There's a couple things out there that are more enticing to publishers, and it's hard to write for trends. So I'm in a series. I'm not going to change it. It's not going to suddenly become spooky or anything like that. So I hope that it has sort of that evergreen quality to it, that it's going to write out. It's going to be when it's written out, it's going to feel like a nice coming of age adventure, exciting type of story. So hopefully it holds through and kids will want to gravitate to it.
You could always do a side story Halloween version. That'd be quite cool, maybe online or something like that. But yeah, I think you're right there. Sticking true to what it is the only way to do it. And yeah, trends will change all the time. So you stick to it. Yeah, definitely. Ross has got a question. How have you found the experience of visiting schools as an author?
I enjoy it. One of the terrifying things about it, though, is a lot of them have read my books now, and they will ask me questions about it that I do not know the answers to. Kids, readers. If there's kids that are readers, like real readers that just consume these books. Will read them in detail, and they will ask you questions. Why did the V do this, or why did she say this at this point, or do you remember that character you read here? And I'm like I kind of remember that.
Yeah, I wrote that 5 years ago. Come on.
Yeah, they're really interested in that, and I don't know how all the other writers on the chat are, but I tend to be super into the weeds while I'm writing these, and then I have this period after where I just kind of let go of them. The Simone characters stick, but in terms of some of the intricacies of the plot may fade a little bit. I don't know if it's because I'm in my advanced age now, but they sort of go a little bit. But I would say, in most part, the school visits are a really cool part of it. Talking about books and getting kids excited about writing, and inspiring them to write. Write short stories, write comics. Anything that gets you excited. You don't have to write novels. Don't think that you have to start by writing a 400,000 word fantasy novel. Write a 20-page short story. Write something that's inspiring to you, and do the best you can.
I've got a question about the schools element, because I think it's always a platform for something really funny to happen. Always is with kids. So 2 questions. One, what is possibly the best question you've had from a kid in a school? And secondly, if you can remember any of these. And secondly, what is perhaps the funniest question you've been asked?
What is the best question I've ever been asked? Well, the best... I would say the best question, I get asked where I came up with the name a lot. Where'd you come up with the name Simone LaFray? And I told that story a bunch of times. It was at a dinner on vacation. It just popped out of my head. I get that one a lot. The funniest question I get the question, who's the V, or why do you call her the V, instead of her name spelled out? Let's see. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I mean, usually the questions are pretty thoughtful, to be quite honest with you, about the books. Or we're asked, where a lot of the conversation goes is the kids will ask me about, things that they're writing. Is this a good idea? Does this story make sense? That kind of stuff. They're usually pretty thoughtful, I would say, about their writing.
I think you need to go to some more public schools that I've been to. You get some more random questions after that.
Oh, well, the question you always get is, how much money are you making?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
You get that kind of stuff, but
Go on, Chris.
No, it's gone now. My question's gone. You ask a question, Chris, it'll come back to me.
Oh, okay. Mario says students are so into how authors write. If you capture their imagination, and you have, yeah. So good. And question being, you've had so many awesome events and signings lately. What are some favorite memories from each?
Oh, one of my favorites. Well, two things. Recently, just this summer was the first time I've had events where people are actually waiting, where you show up and there's people there. They're waiting around and they're waiting around to see you and talk to you and talk about the new book and all that kind of stuff, which is, oh my gosh, that is like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And then the other, which happened recently too, are people that follow you to events. They bought your one book at one event, and then they see you they drive to see you at another event and buy the next one and want to talk about it. And oh my gosh, that is the coolest thing ever. Or when a kid comes up and tells you they read their book and they want to, they want to buy the next one, and what's going to, when you have those conversations, oh my gosh, that is,
it's amazing until you watch or read Misery, and then you get a little shudder. But no, it's brilliant. Did you kind of question it? What are they queuing for then? Because my book's signing's here, but yeah, I imagine that would have been quite an unreal experience the first time.
Oh, it's the best. Yeah, it's the best. I mean, selling a lot of books at these things is super cool too, and establishing those relationships with the book buyers and stuff, that's great too. But when the relationship with the reader, that's always the best. Yeah.
Steve, my question was on moving Simone into the sort of teenage years.
Yes.
And how aware you are when you're constructing the characters of representation and reflecting the sort of the world in which we live in.
Whew. That is a tough one. But I will say this, when I plotted this thing out, a lot of it is holding up, and there's a few things that have happened. I mean, a lot has happened in our world in the last 10 years, and a few of them are holding up pretty good. So, I mean, I did not expect a pandemic. I don't think that was on anyone's bingo card, and how that has impacted, how our youth is behaving in some ways, or how general society is acting in some ways. But yeah, I think it's going to hold up okay. The main thing with all of that, Chris, is the tricky part in it is writing it up so she feels like an authentic teenager. That is the real part, and that all of the other things that are happening around her feel authentic as well. Because when it's middle grade, it's usually a little more sheltered. It's a little more cozy and all that kind of stuff. So the stakes have to get bigger, and her personality has to also expand and react so that she's sort of up to the task, right? I mean, there definitely has to be some slip and falls in there, right? Or the character's just not that interesting. But those things have to be in there. The question now is how old she's going to be when the story ends. I think we feel like she's going to be like right around 17 where it ends. I mean, there's a couple of things we have to smooth out in that. It's not going to be a jump to like, 21 or something like that. I mean, there's the way it's going to end she would have to be somewhere around 17 years old, maybe 18 at the oldest, but somewhere in there. But yeah, it's tricky. That was one part in it I didn't really anticipate is how an aging character, especially in there, because there's such a difference between a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old, right? And how they're going to navigate this world and how you write them authentically and how the world is, how the world changes around them as well. So yeah, it's keeping me on my toes. I would have to say that. It's definitely.
I was going to say, from my experience, if she's 12, 13, if she doesn't use the phrase 6, 7 or mention K-pop, then she's probably not a true 12, 13-year-old at this current time, because it's so irritating.
Mario says having kids helps. It certainly does. So the series being what the term was, being shopped, what does that actually mean in the practical sense? And perhaps what is your role in that process?
Yeah, so by a series of coincidences and some luck, a producer likes it a lot, and there's a very well done proposal that's being shopped around, and we meet probably quarterly to see how that is going. This is a world that I am not familiar with at all. It is, and even that, and here's to go back to something real quick. Reflecting back on 10 years, the publishing world has changed dramatically from where I jumped in it, and I'm just in it, just a toe deep, and it seems like it has changed dramatically. Well, the production side of it, to me, has seemed like it has changed a bunch as well through streaming, and how movies are made now, and the different types of movies and things. It seems like it's moved faster than the publication side. But anyway, it's out there. It's being shopped. It seems that there's more interest in it as an animated series than as a live production series, which would be super cool. And we'll see. The nice thing about Simone is that it does have this evergreen type feel to it. It's not about COVID, or it's not about something that's necessarily tied to a historic period. So it could be done at different times. So it's out there. We'll see how it goes. My role in it is fairly modest, where I just nod my head and say, "This sounds great." I do a lot of supplemental writing for it. So they asked me to write. Of course, they want to know how it ends, right? So they want to know, that it doesn't turn into something that they would have no interest in producing. So there's, they want to know what the books 4 through 6, what happens. So they want the plotting for that. So I've done some supplemental writing for that and some other things. So, and all that goes into the proposal.
So if it was then production deal was secured, and then they were working on the film or comic or animation series, what kind of elements of Simone's character would be kind of a non-negotiable for you? What about her traits would you not want them to change?
That is a great question. I don't think I would want her to be too polished. She's neurodivergent. I mean, that's not a secret now in the series. A lot of people have picked that up that weren't. What's funny now is if you look on a lot of publishers' websites, they're looking for neurodivergent characters. 10 years ago, you didn't see any of that on any of them. But anyway, they're looking for them now. So you want to see that, right? You don't want those things polished off. You want to see, that authentically represented out there. So I think that would be a non-negotiable in that. I don't know. And I think the series is written and the story's written with this sort of wonder to it. And I wouldn't want to see that. I wouldn't want to see it, sort of done in sort of a hyperactive pace. It has sort of a nice feel to it. It has sort of a nice, warm, cozy feel to it. I wouldn't want it to feel like frantic or, too hyperbolic or anything like that.
Nice.
You're laughing. Is someone commenting in the chat here?
There was always comments coming in the chat.
Oh, okay.
From Mario and Ross, of course.
Oh.
There was a question. Let me try and find it.
Yeah, I'll ask you one while Chris is finding it. Do you ever regret starting a series and not just starting one book and seeing sort of where it goes? Because obviously you talked about the big plan that you've got, and I suppose in the writing process you may think, oh, I've got this really good idea, like I could venture off over there, but obviously you've said about having an experience where you did do that and it wasn't as successful as you wanted it to be. So is there any moments where you think, oh, I kind of wish I'd have just done it one at a time?
Perhaps the only thing in that is the series has been a great learning experience. I mean, it has definitely been a, building the airplane while you're flying type of situation for me, because I didn't go to school to learn how to write. It's all learning experience. And I would say for the one book that I've finished that's being shopped now, it's a duology, but it's out there. I would say I was much better prepared to write that book. And I wrote that one and plotted it in 2 weeks, wrote it in 3 months, edited it in 2 months, and I have 4 offers to publish it. So all of that work of, the first couple of Simone books, now I feel like, I have a certain level of fitness where if there's a good idea and it's plotted well and I have the energy to do it, I feel that I can do it. So it's not that I necessarily regret it. Regret wouldn't be the word, but it's tough. I wouldn't recommend doing it that way. But having done it, I feel that I'm better prepared for more books now. I guess is the best way to describe it. There's definitely a more thoughtful process in the series where you're always thinking ahead, like not writing yourself into a corner, all these types of things. But it's a lot. So yeah.
It's a great phrase.
Sorry, Chris. Go on. I'll let you finish.
I was just going to say very quickly, it was a great phrase that you used there. It was about being fit for that role. And for someone who's new in the writing world, it's kind of like being match fit for sport. You can be generally fit, and if you're specifically fit for that sport, you are match fit. And it's basically the term that you've written enough to know yourself and know how your processes work enough to be able to write something new and different in a more proficient way. Get that word out. And I think that was a really cool analogy of how that works there.
Yeah, it's true. It's absolutely true. So yeah, I feel I'm ready to go for the next one.
Go on, Chris. Sorry.
No, it's all right. I was going to say we always have a morbid question on the show, but we've asked you this before, so I'm going to ask you another equally morbid question, and I apologize in advance.
Okay.
I feel bad for even saying this, but
whoa.
If for some reason you couldn't finish the series, who would you want to finish the series for you?
Oh, it'd be my wife.
Right, there we go. That's not too bad.
Yeah, she's the closest to it. She's my most trusted reader. Hard truth. They say you should never have your spouse edit, but she's the first person to read them. Most trusted, hard truth. She would write it out for sure.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's just from my own personal experience. When I've read a series, and whenever I read a book from an author who's had a series, I'm like, if something happens to them now and I'm invested, and it's like a 6-book series and they get to 5, I'm going to be devastated even more so. Obviously, the fact that they're not no longer with us, but the fact that I won't be able to read the end of the story. And I know some authors have been in a similar situation where somebody has finished the book for them or carried on the next book. So yeah.
Well, this is why they need to take up more authors for TV shows and films, because there's the amount of films. If you get into series of films, that happens so often where they just cancel it after 1 or 2 seasons and leave you completely hanging. It's ridiculous. Question right there. Let's have a look at it. Halo says, "What is the duology series about?" Exclusive teaser? Question in terabyte.
Well, I can't say too much about it, but it's so this, you talk about writing fitness. So this is an interesting thing, and when this comes out, I think writers, in particular, will be interested in what happened here. But it was a story that I'd been thinking about for some time, and I wrote it as a middle grade, because that you talk about that author age, it just seemed natural to me, and I wrote it, plotted out, wrote it, and then it really good interest. But what happened was, through another series of coincidences, a pretty big publisher got it. And they liked the concept, they liked the voice, they liked everything about it, but they didn't acquire middle grade. And they asked if I would be interested in possibly writing it up, or if I could possibly reinvent it or re-see it as a young adult book. So I originally thought, oh, I don't want to, what? But it's not YA, it's middle grade. And then in the next thought, I thought, well, what a great opportunity that somebody sees it as a good concept. And that's one of the things when I talk to, kids in schools now, or even at higher levels, like high school, especially, if you can get a publisher that's interested in the concept or the idea of the book. I mean, everybody has stories, but if the theme is good, and if somebody who's like a gatekeeper to publication really likes the concept of the book, that's great. That you can work on the plotting and you can work on these other things. So I've spent a couple of months redoing that, and now I'm at the edge of resubmitting that back out. So we'll see how that goes. But it was written as a duology. It's different for me for sure, but it ties into some folklore and magical realism and some different things that are popular right now. So I feel like it's going to be a pretty good one, and we'll see how it goes. Get it out there, and we will see. You never know. In this publishing world, you just never know. And then I've another COVID project out there that's about 30,000 words in, and then start on the next Simone, and hopefully take a nap at some point.
Well, Ross says, as I agree, wow, that's amazing, and a huge compliment to be asked to do that. So yeah, congratulations, and I'm sure you'll do a sterling job with it. One more question, I think, and then we'll try and wrap things up as we're hitting the time limit. Halo says again, thank you for your questions. Will any of the future Simone books feature other point of views?
That is a great question. I am not a huge fan of multiple points of view, and I may be in the minority in that. I find them hard to write. I've tried to do it, and I just find them really hard to write. And now with the Simone books now, I feel like I have, a pretty good sense of them, and I just don't want to mess it up. I guess that's the best way to describe it. I feel like I have it pretty well oiled at this point, and I just don't want to mess the machine up. But it's a good question. But multiple points of view, they're tricky. When they're done well, they're brilliant. But they're tricky. It's just a tool that's not in my toolbox so far.
So let me ask you this then.
Yeah.
I want to, Chris. We should ask this to every guest, but top 3 tips you can give an author who may be starting out on their journey.
Starting out on the journey?
Yeah.
So you hear a lot of the same ones, read your work out loud, all that stuff. Read. That's a huge one, all that stuff. The one that I'm finding to be really helpful is work on 2 projects at the same time.
Okay.
I'm finding that one to be really good. Sort of like I can only focus on like sort of jump energy, like you sort of wane on one thing, one to go from one to the other. But I would say if you're starting out, I think you mentioned there for a starting out author, really think about the concept of the book, not necessarily just the story. Think of the theme, think how this is going to impact it. If you can, one of the really good things, if you can do this at the start, if you can write a great log line on your book, and that was one of the things with this duology that I'm working now. One of the first things I wrote was what I thought was a really good log line. If you can write a really good log line and use that as your North Star, that is, because a lot of authors can't do that, or they sort of stumble on what that is. Write a really good log line, make sure it's plotted out, and don't set a schedule. Just, get after it, do your best, write authentically.
Nice. Chris is laughing at the comments in the chat there. I can
Yeah,
see.
the comments are making me laugh. I'll put them on screen just so people can see them a little bit bigger. But Halo said I should put Jim in one of my books. And Ross said, Halo, no. And then nobody wants to be a character in your books. We just want to live. Let us live. And that made me laugh. But yeah, she did reference, obviously, she said Jim is a character in your books, though, and an awesome character. I think she was saying that during the conversation when you were talking about maybe doing that transition into young adult. And I think that's why she mentioned Jim in that moment, because that's what we were talking about. But yeah, interesting.
Before we do wrap this up, are you any good at editing? Because I want you to try and edit this comment from Ross. It says, fantastic advice, Steve. You remain my enemy.
I don't know. That one's tricky.
Yeah.
It's a little tricky. I think it needs some work. Maybe some Grammarly.
Yeah.
Editorial intervention there. I don't know. I'd work at it. I think Ross needs to continue to work.
There you go, Uncle Ross. You need to do some edit and work on there from Steve. Okay. Brilliant. We're over the hour, but importantly, like I said, if you are watching this and you haven't seen Steve's Road to Writing, please go and check out the interview that we highlighted earlier from 3 years ago. Kind of crazy. And Halo says, you are the remains of my enemy. That makes more sense. Yes, and of course, pick up the Simone LaFray series, which we will link in the description. Go back to book 1, but more importantly, for the people invested in the series, when would book 4 and 5 be there, roughly?
Well, we're hoping. Let's see, book 4 would be early 2027 would be the hope, if everything goes well there. And then the hope is to get books 4 and 5 together, so they're hopefully within the same calendar year to go out. So yeah, I got to push hard on those, but hopefully these other ones that I'm working on come out in the middle there as well. So yeah, busy.
Yeah, of course. And where would the best place be for them to go and pick up the series?
So they're available everywhere. Amazon, books, Barnes & Noble, local bookstores carry them as well. You can find me anywhere online. I think everybody in the chat can probably knows all of my socials, and also SPO Farrell, and working on my first newsletter for my website as well, the much anticipated newsletter.
Love it. Brilliant. Anything from you, Chris, before we wrap this up?
No, obviously huge fan of the Simone LaFray books, and I would definitely recommend them to anyone. I love the idea that somebody could pick up one of these books for the very first time and just really get into reading off the back of it. I think that's fantastic. And yeah, absolutely. Just huge credit for you, Steve, to actually create a character that you can put in the same ballpark of do you like Harry Potter? Oh, you might like this. That's an incredible achievement to be able to do that. And obviously all readers across the world are loving her as well. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how the journey progresses.
Well, thank you, and good luck with your Velvetizer.
Brilliant. Steve, yeah, absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. We hope to see whether it's an animated series or a movie or a TV show, whatever the case may be. We hope to see that journey come to fruition. And thank you so much for sharing another story with us. Fantastic work and effort being put in by you, and it's showing. So well done.
All right, thanks, guys.
Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Please stay safe, and we will see you all next week. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.